Have you ever been in a relationship with someone you're not physically attracted to, and why? Story 1. When I first met my husband, I thought that he was Waleed. Now I think that he's the handsomest guy on earth. I loved him for being a good guy, loved his mom, worked hard, good sense of humor, he kept promises. He was everything that I had never met before. The more I knew him, the more I fell in love with his looks. Edit. Thank you for the award, that was so nice of you. Story 2. Yes, we just got along so well. We had the same sense of humor, the same hobbies. He was also a super compassionate and thoughtful soul, an amazing listener. I always felt safe around him, even though I didn't find him particularly physically attractive. I loved spending time with him. Turns out he was gay and not physically attracted to me either, haha. Story 3. Thought I was being overly picky and that in time I would come to be attracted to him. This happened a few times before I came to realize I was a lesbian. Story 4. Yep, and it was very shitty of me. I thought I could compromise with myself. She was an absolutely lovely human being, amazing personality, just everything you could ask for intellectually speaking. I thought that would be enough for me, but it wasn't. I was a very broken person, hadn't addressed my own issues and carried them from one relationship to the next. I feel tremendous guilt for not being true to myself and wasting her time. Time shall never get back. I've often thought of writing to her and apologizing, but I think that would ultimately be more self-serving for me than do anything for her. She didn't deserve the way I behaved and doesn't need to have that hurt revisited just so I can feel better. I do wish her well. I hope that she finds someone that truly appreciates her for all of her qualities in a way I couldn't. Story 5. Yeah, BC, I was young and he told everyone we were going out. A kid at a nearby school hung himself. BC, his GF dumped him. So he tried the same thing with me. Anytime I tried leaving I was a gullible idiot. Story 6. Yep, we worked together. He seemed really nice and everyone in our store was rooting for him to get me as a girlfriend. While he was sweet, we had nothing in common with each other and he wasn't interested in anything I liked, which made me less enthusiastic to participate in his hobbies. He said and did embarrassing things in front of my friends and my family. He had a girlfriend at 14 that had died and he had a lot of baggage from that. Had I loved him, I might have stayed to help him work through it, but I did not, and after 2 months I was so sick of him I had to break things off. Fun fact, at the time he complained to a coworker that I wouldn't put out, and that coworker and I just celebrated 18 years together, as he is attractive to me and makes me laugh and doesn't compare me to a dead teenager every single day. Story 7. I don't experience physical attraction until I'm fully in love with someone, and once I've fallen in love with their personality, everything about them is attractive, so I guess the answer is kinda, but only at the beginning. Story 8. Sorta yes, I was very badly lonely, and kinda connected with a girl. I didn't find her super ugly, but I wasn't really attracted much either. I admitted it to her, which I'm an idiot for, and we eventually broke up. I never called her ugly or anything though. Story 9. I was told he's a nice guy. Just give him a chance so much when I was young, and saying I didn't find him attractive would get so much hate. I swear people would pull out charts. You claim to not be attracted to Joe F, and yet you dated both Chris S and George H. Joe is at least as attractive as Chris and more attractive than George. You can't say you're not attracted to him if you were attracted to them. And then they'd go on to point out that I was no great prize myself and should be less stuck up, as if finding someone attractive is a question of ego. So, I'd give in and date these guys, because I didn't want to be labeled a bad person who only cared about looks. This was a long time ago. The idea that women could have preferences same as men wasn't really a thing yet. Story 10. Yes, my wife, we are not physically attracted to one another, but we are deeply mentally in love. Our bond is not something I would give for any amount of. I can't tell you how many people have told me over the years I can't really be in love with someone if I'm not physically attracted to them. Sorry, I don't have to someone to be deeply madly in love with them. Before you ask, neither of us are ACE, and we do maintain an element to our relationship. Our relationship is not open, and we are exclusive to one another. Sorry if that came across as defensive, but I've had to defend my love for many years now. Story 11. My first marriage. I was too afraid of hurting her feelings by just breaking up with her, so I just stayed and we got married. Then it didn't work out and we divorced. So if any of you youngsters are reading this, heed my warning. Don't stay with someone just because you don't want to hurt feelings. Story 12. Yeah, it's almost every time for me, because for me, I'm attracted to who the person is more than I am their looks. Their looks are just an additional bonus. If I love them, then you'll think they're hot because they're them. Story 13. My ex-wife. We were together for 4 years. I really like her personality and sense of humor. We started to hang out all the time and she admitted she had feelings for me. I didn't want things to change and was afraid that if I rejected her she would find someone else or become distant, so I gave it a chance. Most advice says that physical attraction can grow, and I wouldn't say it grew. It would say I got used to it and it didn't bother me anymore. I loved her. She had low self-esteem and would become infatuated with any guy who showed her attention because she didn't view herself as attractive. She ended up cheating on me with a coworker and we broke up. Story 14. I bought into that's shoveled at women to be nice and give him a chance. I shouldn't have. A man doesn't have to be an axe murderer before a woman is permitted to turn him down. Story 15. Yes, I dated a girl for over a year that I wasn't actually attracted to because I had a string of bad relationships with hot girls who were toxic and treated me badly. So, when this girl came along and wanted to do anything and everything just to please me, not to mention was incredibly kind and sweet. It was such a breath of fresh air compared to the past relationships. I didn't marry her, but how she treated me and her personality is what made me attracted to her. Story 16. Yes, for 16 years, I thought I would be left on the shelf otherwise. I was only 23 but felt it was expected of me at the time. I tried but I was unhappy. Story 17. Currently in a relationship with someone I'm not physically attracted to. He represents safety and comfort, and he feels like home. However, our life is non-existent. Story 18. I wasn't attracted to my current at all when we first started dating. The only reason why I gave it a shot was because we were really good friends. 2 years in, I think he's the hottest guy I've been with and am madly in love. Story 19. Honestly, sometimes I think I'm broken. I've only been genuinely attracted to people a few times in my life, so I'm usually single, but when you're aware that it takes something RLY specific to get your motor running, you also have to realize that the people that are going to make you feel that way are maybe going to come around a handful of times in one lifetime. Basically because I think my standards are unrealistic, and I shouldn't be turning people away just because I don't instantly want to jump their bones, although we'll be honest, it doesn't feel good to constantly feel like you want more despite the other person's best efforts, so I've been celibate for years now. It is what it is. Story 20. Yes, I gave him a chance but I just wasn't feeling it overall, so I let him go gently, and that's when I spiraled. I wasn't in the right headspace at the time. Story 21. Yes, I wanted to be loved so bad, and he was very sweet and loving, until he turned out to be a drug addicted and who sometimes could be a bit aggressive, went looking for love elsewhere. We were together for almost a year, it was 15 years ago, and he still messages me because he misses me. Story 22. Married 6 years, but for the last few I've realized I have no interest in with her. I feel my sexuality has changed, but our lives are so intertwined, if we separated it'd destroy both of our lives. Story 23. Not a relationship, but I had very strong feelings for someone who I never found physically attractive. He was actually 20 years older than me. I guess his maturity was factor. He also had a lot of charm. I don't think I've ever felt so strongly about a person like that before. Story 24. The physical attraction to my man took a minute for sure. It's not always about looks. He actually wants to hang out with me, loves being outside, our life is killer, he is kind, patient, emotionally mature, makes me laugh, and all around a good dude. I think he's the hottest guy out there. Hee. Story 25. Yes, I was young and he was nice. 3 years. Looking back now I have no idea what I was thinking. My husband is physically my type and it's so much better. I often catch myself just checking him out and always want to rip his pants off. Story 26. Yes, very often. I get used to the person and the person will automatically become attractive. Physical attractiveness will fade anyway. The personality will stay most of the time. Story 27. Of course now, I'm ace, so my case is a little different. I don't experience physical attraction, period. It essentially made me really flexible in regards to what husband material was for me, since I mentally extended a shot to some people that weren't necessarily conventionally attractive but who I had chemistry with. I 100 operated on the friends first system though. Story 28. I'm the physically unattractive person, short, fat, bad acne, poorly dressed. My wife is very beautiful, like very, I can get double takes from people without makeup, beautiful people, sometimes to my face. Ask me what she sees in me. Honestly I don't know, but I'm not going to waste time thinking about it. Story 29. Physical attraction is an illusion. It's a collection of personal biases that has nothing to do with the person you are looking at. What beautify is in the eye of the beholder means is that your competency at finding beauty in another is what determines attraction, not that person's appearance. When you marry someone and live up to your vows, you are bound to a person who will get older, fatter, and sicker every day for the rest of your life. How is that supposed to work? It's not magic, it's investment. Old married people who have sustained their love and tended their marriage always say their spouse is the most beautiful in the world. Are they lying? No, they have spent time searching, exploring, and finding beauty in their person that no one else will ever know, that no one else is qualified to know. They have an artist's eye for one particular muse that no one could ever match. If you are in a relationship with someone you are not physically attracted to, you are doing something wrong. You are failing at love in some fundamental way. And it makes me feel sorry for them. Someone else could love them better, and they do deserve better. Story 30. One of my exes was like this. We went on a blind date after meeting online without swapping pictures. Even though he wasn't attractive to me when we first met, the conversation was effortless. He was a great listener, he had an amazing sense of humor, and our chemistry was phenomenal. Pretty quickly I stopped noticing things I found unattractive about him, and the things about him that were attractive to me came into sharper focus. When we hooked up after the second date, that was fantastic, and that sealed the deal. We were in a relationship for 2 years before breaking up amicably. Not gonna lie, being with him completely reset, changed, expanded the type of person I am romantically and drawn to. Story 31. But didn't really figure it out till recently. Up till then I identified as pan, because to me I was never attracted to what was in anyone's pants. Turns out, I just don't experience attraction. I do experience arousal and enjoy, it just takes me a different way to get there. I require to be petted and touched non-sexually for a bit before my body decides it's done feeling weird about being touched and decides it feels good. Sometimes I'm spontaneously aroused and have no idea why. That's when I initiate. That said, I've been with the same guy for 13 years, married for 7, and we are both very satisfied. And it's only gotten better over the years. So yes, I've never experienced or physical attraction to anyone, but Eve got a satisfying life and happy marriage. I'm not sure I could sleep with someone I'm actively repulsed by though. Repulsion is generally due to personality or just extremely bad oral hygiene. Story 32. I was young, inexperienced, introverted and lonely, so when a girl actually showed me affection for the first time, I latched onto her. I wasn't attracted to her, nor particularly enamored with her personality, but I thought only shallow men put importance on looks, and an outspoken woman would complement my passive nature. When I started to realize I wasn't happy being with her, I was too spineless to end it. I just went with the flow and subconsciously began to check out of the relationship. Eventually, I was bullied by her and her family into marriage, and 3 months later she was pregnant. 10 years later I was miserable, but promised myself I would stay for the sake of our daughter. But another 10 years down the track I had become numb to my situation and once again, lacked the courage to finally walk away. I talked with friends, family, a counselor, strangers on the internet, and all of them told me to stop being a doormat and leave her. So I did. Don't be like me and waste half your life, and someone else's, by settling. It's not selfish or shallow to want someone who makes you smile when you see them. Story 33. I wasn't my wife's type. She loved chocolate, so Asian wasn't her preference. But apparently I was her comedic type to the point she loved being around me all the time. Then she started picking up on my other traits, like how I was with kids, my approach and ambition to life, so all the pieces fell together. Problem is now she drools over dramas, or most of the male actors in Crazy Rich Asians. Story 34. Yes, because he was truly my best friend. I thought because of that I'd be able to work up to be attracted to him, but unfortunately the opposite happened and we both grew distrusting and grossed out by each other over time. Story 35. Yes, my last boyfriend was a very sweet man who was fun to talk to. However, he was very bad with reaching my standards of grooming. As a larger bearded man, I personally take pride in making my beard and mustache neat, making sure I smell good, and keeping my skin reasonably moisturized and exfoliated. Nothing crazy, no serums, no mani-pedis, no waxing, just standard stuff. My now ex had the opposite view. He let his beard grow scraggly, his mustache grow over both lips, his skin had dry patches not related to a medical issue, he had a lot of blackheads, never cleaned behind his ears, and just overall had, in my opinion, poor hygiene. And because of this, I really did not find him to be physically attractive to me. Once we met in person, we met on Tinder. We lasted 4-ish months before I reached the end of my rope. I tried to encourage better habits, but it just was too much and he was very stubbornly against it. Story 36. I grew attracted as I fell in love. I knew he was going to ask me out and even asked for advice on how to turn him down without screwing with our friendship. When I went to say no thank you, a yes fell out. Figured fate required him to be part of my path temporarily. I was wrong about it being temporary. We fell in love and moved in together within 2 months. Together 14 years now. Story 37. Yes, but by accident. He always wore hats. It never crossed my mind as to why. He was going bald at 22. He also was apparently in shape, but never told me he was morbidly obese as a teenager. I did not realize the balding or the hanging skin until we had the first time. Tried to get past it. Absolutely couldn't. Story 38. I'm demi-romantic. I've only had one girlfriend, and during the relationship, I never had that flicker of feeling in my chest. We ended on good terms and we're gonna try in a year. Story 39. I wouldn't do it because I think people deserve to be with someone that genuinely wants them, and I wouldn't want to be with a guy that's not attracted to me. Story 40. Yup, he seemed nice enough at the time and I told myself that maybe I'd end up attracted to him as we got to know each other. Everybody told me how much of a great guy he was. He wasn't. He was an abusive alcoholic that I wasted so much time on because he threatened to commit suicide every time we argued about anything. It was one of the lowest points in my life. However, it definitely taught me to not put up with that kind of abuse again. Story 41. Yes, but not for very long. I find almost nobody attractive. I'm not sure if I'm actually demisexual and just haven't met anyone who sparks my interest yet, so I've dated a few guys who weren't attractive. It didn't work out because one was a weirdo, one was a pig, and one had the conversational skills of an early chatbot. Story 42. I think every man I've dated has been somewhat unattractive, not because of looks, but because of habits. I had a boyfriend who would rub his fingers in a circle on his back and play with the little black beads that would accumulate in his hand due to not washing regularly. Tons of men who had skid marks on their underwear. Men who didn't take care of their feet nails so they were ragged and had fungus. A lot of these traits' lack of care contribute to their attractiveness level. I went along with it for a while, because I've always been told it's normal, but I've decided it's not normal. If I can clean myself and take care of myself well, then I expect the men I date to do so as well. Story 43. BC. He treated me well. At first it was hard. BC. You imagine. I didn't feel that physical attraction, but he literally love-bombed me, so I fell in love. When you're in love you start to like every little thing, and you even find other things to kinda compensate. At the start it was hard when he sent me pictures of his face LMAO, but when you are actually in love it becomes insignificant. You like many other things about the person. PPL are so much more than their physique anyway. Story 44. They were perfect in every other way. That was great, they just weren't very attractive. Lasted about a decade, split because I realized I didn't want children. Story 45. My first true long-term relationship. I was in a really bad depression, and pretty much all of my friends were in lasting relationships while I hadn't so much as been on a date in a couple years. This girl at college starts giving me a ton of attention, and I genuinely was having a good time with her whenever we hung out, but I didn't find her attractive at all. Still, just the feeling of finally having someone care about me just overrode that. It didn't take long to see I was just afraid of being lonely. After a while I wasn't enjoying my time with her. I didn't like the way she was treating me. We got at a lot of arguments and the whole thing lasted way longer than it should have because I was terrified of being alone again. Thankfully that's way in the past, and I got myself some help, and I'm now happily married to the love of my life with our first child on the way. Story 46. I was with a stud before my wife. She would secretly get dressed up for me. When she did she looked great, but when she was dressed more manly I wasn't attracted to her at all. Besides my wife, the best lay and second best soul I've ever known behind my wife. Amanda, hope you are doing well. Story 47. My longest relationship. Ironically, I just really liked him as a person and I thought I would grow more attracted in time. In retrospect, I was beginning to realize I was trans even if I didn't really understand it, and he felt like a life preserver for me to make myself be normal, cis and straight. But I had always been very much attracted to women my whole life, and spent basically my whole life until that point identifying as lesbian. I guess I thought if I could be happy with him I could ignore everything else. And for a while it kind of worked. We had a couple rough years after the breakup, but now he's one of my best friends. Even came to visit me in the hospital while I was recovering from bottom surgery. I am happily single, and he's dating a really incredible woman, so I guess it all worked out okay in the end. Story 48. Yes, we got married and traveled the world having an amazing time. Man, we had so much fun. She was diagnosed with cancer after our son was born and died a short time later. I still think of those years with so much fondness. I hope she is soaring above the clouds and happy as ever. Story 49. Yes, it was the first relationship I'd ever had. Nobody had ever expressed interest in me. Initially I enjoyed being desired, but it got really boring because I was not attracted to him whatsoever, and eventually I was utterly repulsed by him. Our entire life consisted of him dry, my limp body and ejaculating onto my back. He knew I wasn't attracted to him and I tried to break up with him 4 times, but he kept crying like a little, so I stayed with him. He is disgusting and vile and I hope he dies. Story 50. My ex-girlfriend had these little mustache and beard whiskers that I just kind of glossed over for the first 2 years of our relationship. As she started getting uglier as a person, I started to see her uglier in presence, if that makes sense. Nothing against the women who unfortunately have to deal with this issue. She just really sucked, ended up cheating on me with her ex and bragging about it to her friends, whose messages I found fun stuff. Story 51. Yeah, I've always tried to focus on personality and other things more so than looks, and I identify as pansexual, but when it comes down to it, it's hard to be intimate with someone who you don't feel attracted to physically. A good relationship seems to have a balance of both, for me anyway. Story 52. Definitely. Assuming you mean a romantic relationship, I had a policy of giving everyone a shot if they had legitimate interest. Also, physical attraction is somewhat secondary to me. Don't smell bad though, that consistently is a deal breaker. Story 53. My last ex was when I was a senior in high school. He was a few months younger than me, but was already balding. He also never took care of himself. I thought he was sweet though. He gave me attention I didn't know I wanted. He also cheated, so there's that. Story 54. You should be attracted to your partner. Attraction, chemistry and compatibility is important. It can work without, but most people are superficial and need to feel physically attracted to their partner at least. Then there's the issue about chemistry. Most people are physically attracted to each other but lack chemistry, and you can't force that. The relationship ends up fizzling out and then on to the next person that gives you a buzz. Difficult finding someone who you're attracted to, have chemistry with and are also compatible with shared interests, values and beliefs. Personally, I find everyone attractive in one way or another, so physical attraction, or if someone's not my usual type, doesn't bother me much. I like things that aren't really physical like empathy and emotional intelligence. Someone who is physically attractive is just a bonus. I only ever had chemistry, felt attracted and compatible with like 3 men in my life, and 2 of them were much older than me. Story 55. Yeah, for so embarrassingly long I'm not even gonna say, I had zero self-esteem and thought he was kinda cute in the face. Then he lost all his hair and was already fat and got a lot of fatter. His head looked like an egg on top of a bigger egg. I was lonely and truly hated myself and felt I deserved nothing good. I got a lot of bullshit to recover from, but I found a man who is wonderful and sweet and very hot. It's hard to reconcile how I feel about myself with being with such a hottie who is always super nice to me. It's so awesome being with him, but my anxiety spikes like crazy sometimes because I feel like I don't deserve him. Story 56. Yes, dated a cross-eyed chick in college that was as big as a whale, very ogre looking, but her head game was 1010, so we made it work. She could a bowling ball through a straw. You know, well, fast forward 12 years, we are married. Story 57. Yes, I was not at all attracted to him for months, but when I got feelings for him I thought he was so cute, that was great, and he was there for me during some really dark times. No longer have feelings, so I'm back to being unattracted to him, but it was fun while it lasted. Story 58. We would have been better off as friends, but we met on a dating app and they were definitely into me. At the time I would drop everything for anyone that would give me an ounce of attention. Lesson learned. They transitioned years later, and honestly they look a lot better as a girl. Story 59. Years ago, I heard a quote that rang true: women learn to be attracted to the men they love. Men learn to love the women they're attracted to. I may have written wrong, but I hope it makes sense. Story 60. Not a serious relationship but dated a few, one was for convenience and the other I was a little attracted to but not fully. With him he treated me really well and showed me a good time. Story 61. Somewhat, I was in a brief, but extremely fun relationship with someone who was somewhat overweight and had her own body image issues. She said so herself, up front. I never brought it up, but she was hella fun and her humor just really vibed well with mine. We had some really fun, innocent texts, as well as some drunken not so innocent ones. She was kinda like Pam from Archer, confident without being abrasive, but still sarcastic and slightly inappropriate. She treated me like a king and she thought the world of me. For that, I found her very attractive, to with what others might have thought. Story 62. I've only been in two, and I wasn't attracted to either of them. The first one, my glasses were broken so he was blurry. A couple of weeks later I could see and realized I didn't fancy him at all. It's complicated. The second one, we were just friends. He pushed for more. I was very vulnerable at the time and gave in. Obviously it didn't work out. I've been single for 20 years now, but it does mean I have never had physical contact with someone I'm attracted to, which is probably a bit sad. Story 63. Yes, I felt a little attraction in the beginning, but she wasn't my type. However, I thought if we knew each other better maybe it could work. Spoiler, it didn't. Beyond the physical, she was toxic, very possessive and full of many problems, product of her low self-esteem. We lasted a year but it was a horrible relationship that costed me a lot to finish and overcome. Of course all the bad things were about personality and not the physical. However, I never find her attractive in any way. Story 64. Yep, had been following me around and asked me to be his girlfriend. No, not a date. 0 to girlfriend, and I said yes only because I was actively having a mental breakdown. He sucked at everything, but especially boundaries and comprehension of the word no. I was a teenager who'd never been in a relationship, so it took me 4 and 12 months to get rid of him, which was coincidentally the length of our entire relationship. I was a weird little, so while just telling him to off and hurting his feelings in the moment was never even considered, engineering a situation unbeknownst to him in which he independently decided that I was seriously hurting his chances with his crush of years was enthusiastically embraced. The facts that she was gay and had absolutely no romantic interest in him were inconsequential. She was my ticket out. Also, he didn't know she was gay, or that she wasn't interested at all. I never met her, but I knew from his descriptions of how she interacted with him. So when he messaged me a couple months later and was all she's been secretly dating a girl for 6 months, wanna try again, I was like, oh no, how unfortunate. Abso-fucking-lutely not. Anyways, I learned not to date losers I wasn't attracted to, even if I was out of my mind. Story 65. Yes, because I thought I was supposed toit was expected I'd grow into finding him attractive. Story 66. Yeah, my ex who was in IT, kinda felt sorry for him at first because he was sweet and seemed really nice and I was really only interested because we both liked a couple of the same things. I was so wrong. He was a full-blown narc with BPD, as ugly inside as he is on the outside. Story 67. When I was 18 I had a moment of madness. For no reason that I really know of, I decided to tell one of my friends that I thought her friend was cute. I did not, at all. I don't know what that gripped me and made it come out of my mouth. But as I spent time with him I fell in love with him. I don't think I ever looked at his face and was like, my god he's hot, but I did start to want his hands on me and I was madly attracted to his forearms. It ended up being my first stable relationship after years of being off and on with the first guy I ever dated. I was devastated when we broke up. Even to this day when I come across a picture that's been tucked away somewhere and forgotten for years I don't see anything in his face I find attractive. But those arms, I would totally those forearms still. Story 68. But the D was really good and he has all the qualities I was looking for. Kindness, knowledge, survival skills, listener, for kids later and we have ADHD troubles but I love him. Story 69. IF 57. Need to be attracted to the man's looks. Then I need to know he is attracted to my looks. That's why old isn't working for me. The men it's showing me all have so many of my deal breakers in terms of physical looks. I'll chat with anyone, but if there's no way I can envision being naked or desire being naked with them, then I see no reason to go further. Personality is not enough for me. Story 70. Didn't find him physically attractive but liked him for his intelligence and wit. He wasn't bad looking, but I felt guilty for never being able to come up with a compliment whenever he sent me pictures of himself. That guilt went away pretty quickly when he unceremoniously broke up with me after I came back from a vacation and was booking flights to meet him in another city. He got engaged to someone else 3 months later and cribbed about her to me. Story 71. Yes, community college. He was my best friend and only my second boyfriend. I was very inexperienced, funny and witty, extremely talented, a theater kid, so super artsy and creative and passionate, intelligent, knew everybody in town and was very popular because of his personality. He was incredibly underweight. He was born with a hole in his heart and had medical issues as a child. He was not attractive to me in the slightest, but everything else about him seemed like he checked all my boxes and he had me convinced we were supposed to be together. I was his muse, and he was the sort of guy who could talk his way into or out of anything. I am a sucker for a strong, chubby man with a belly, and he was the complete opposite. I stayed with him for 3 years before demanding we open the relationship because I could not stand being romantic or intimate with him. But every time I tried to break up with him he would guilt me tremendously and make me feel like I was destroying him and my own future. I look back now and am almost positive he was on drugs but very good at hiding it. He was also a functional alcoholic. He didn't want to open the relationship, but he also didn't want to lose me. It was a bad situation all around that I should have never gotten into and should have ended it long before I actually did, but being in that open relationship showed me what it was like to be with someone I was actually romantically attracted to, and shed enough light on the toxicity we were both perpetuating that I was eventually able to end it for good. He's doing a lot better these days, married, sober, has kids, has a business, and I'm so happy for him. I hate that I hurt him. I wouldn't change a thing because I have the most amazing husband, strong chubby man with a belly and kids and life now, but I distinctly remember the feeling of crying myself to sleep wishing I could be attracted to him, wanting so badly to want his romantic attention, to want to kiss him. To not catch myself longing to be in a relationship when I saw happy couples and then suddenly coming to and remembering I was in one and shouldn't be thinking that way. To this day I wish attraction were not so fickle. Too many people cannot help the face and body they were born into. Story 72. Oof, yeah, twice. The first time was a FWB relationship in college. I was a virgin and wanted to not be, and even though I didn't really find them physically attractive, they were a good friend, we had fun hanging out together, and I trusted them. That was good usually, sometimes just fine but always educational as in learning what we liked and didn't like, but we were on the same page about both of us only wanting more experience, not a relationship. I don't think they were very attracted to me either, but I don't regret it. I got exactly what I wanted out of it, basically the version of lab partners. As for the second, it was a long-distance relationship, more than 2 years. It was great long distance. I was convinced I loved them when it was all voice calls and video chats, but in person the attraction just wasn't there. I tried to convince myself that if I really loved them, then I had to be attracted to them and I just needed to adjust when we were in person, but it didn't really work. That's not why the relationship ultimately failed, but I think lack of physical attraction would have been its downfall if either of us had ever followed through with moving closer to the other.